Okay, so let's start with statements that we have in terms of TypeScript. Even these statements that we are trying to discuss, it's similar in all the other programming languages as well. That is like some of the statements that we'll be discussing. What is the statements are it also known as a conditions. So statements are conditions. Okay, so what is statement or what is condition that we have in terms of TypeScript? So definition is like condition or statement, whatever you say, either condition or statement in TypeScript allow us to execute different block of code, different block. What is block? Something that we write inside a curly braces is known as blocking programming language. Okay, not only in TypeScript, but in any of the other programming language as well. Whenever we write something inside a curly braces, it's known as a block of code. So condition in TypeScript allows us to execute different blocks of code based on different conditions. Okay. Our statements, conditions or statement in TypeScript allows us to execute the code, execute different blocks of code based on the different conditions. What is under that is sometimes in programming language, we have to make some kind of decision that something have been passed or something have been failed, or whenever we try to compare some values, whether those values are passed or failed, like those values are passed or failed or true or false. Based on the different conditions, we try to do some kind of decision in terms of test automation and in terms of programming as well. So conditions is the similar one which will try to validate statement or condition is a similar one, which is try to validate some kind of condition in our programming or test automation. So what it does is it tries to validate a condition which will return as a Boolean expression. And if the Boolean expression is true, then the block of code will be executed. Whatever the code that we write inside the curly braces will be executed. If the condition is false, at that point of time, the false block of code will be executed. So false block of code in the sense, so let's say example, whenever we try to check a condition, if the condition is true, then whatever we write inside the block will be executed. If the condition is false, then other block of code will be executed. That is what the statement says, that in TypeScript, it allows us to execute different block of code based on different conditions. Okay, let's try to see in terms of example, and then we'll understand how it works in general. So there are different types of statements that we have in TypeScript. One is if statement. The very basic statement is a if statement, which will only have one particular block of code. Second, that we have is known as if else statement. Third, we can also check for, we have a if block will be there, which is like if else statement. And then the last one is switch statement. So these are the four statements that we have in terms of TypeScript. And all these four statements are similar in any of the other programming language as well. Either we take Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, Golang, Python, and other language. In all the language, this will be same. All these four statements will be same. Definition will be same, and even logic will be same as well. There will not be any syntactical difference as well in terms of JavaScript or TypeScript or any other programming language. Okay. So let's get started with first if statement. What is if statement? So if statement is basically used to execute a code if the specified condition is true, whatever the condition that we are trying to validate. If the condition is true, at that point of time, if block will be executed. So I'll also write a definition, which is if statement is used to execute a block of code. Block, whenever it comes terminology like block, you can directly consider it as a curly braces. Inside the curly braces, whatever we write is known as a block of code. Block of code if the specified condition is true. That is what I said. Like whenever we use a statement, that means in terms of statement, we are trying to check whether the condition are true or false. If the condition is true, then that block of statement will be executed. If the condition is false, then the other block of statement will be executed in terms of if else if and switch. But in terms of if, there will only be one block. So if the condition is true, then only the statement will be executed, else it will skip everything. Let's see what is the syntax of declaration for if statement. So syntax for if statement is, it will have a if block, which will take a condition, and this condition will either return us a true or false value. Okay. And after that, we'll have to write a code, whatever the code that we have to execute. And then inside this, we will be writing a code inside the curly braces. So if you see over here, this is the complete syntax of declaration of if statement. We'll use a keyword known as if. Inside this, we'll be writing a condition, which is inside the uh, uh, parenthesis, which is, this is known as a parenthesis or a small bracket. So inside this, we'll try to write a condition, and this condition will either result as a true value or false value. So if it is returning as true, then whatever the code that we write inside the curly braces, that means inside the block of, that means the block of code, which is inside the curly braces, whatever the code that will be writing, if if the condition is true, then these block of statement will be executed. If the condition is false, then nothing will happen in terms of our uh, the code that will be writing, or in terms of whatever the condition that will try to check. Okay. So example, let's see over here. Let's say we are trying to say if 5 is greater than 10. Okay. So whenever we try to say, like, let's say 5 is greater than 10. If the 5 is greater than 10, then we'll just say it as 5 is greater than 10. What is the syntax that we have? We have to use if keyword, and then we have to write a condition. Based on the condition, what if it is true, then only this block of statement will be executed. If it is false, then nothing will be executed. Let's try to print it out and see what is happening in case when we have like a true value and when we have a false value for these two statements. So I'll also write a second statement, which is if, and we'll say it as, let's say 10 is greater than 5, or let's say 15 is greater than 10. And then we can say as 15 is greater than 10. If it is greater than, if that is what we have gone through with the definition of if statement. If the condition is true, then the block of code will be executed. If the condition is false, then this block of code will be skipped and nothing will happen in terms of our coding, either programming or in terms of test automation. Okay. Let's try to run it and see how it is happening. TSX statements.ts. So if you see over here, it did not print for this one because The condition itself is a false. So whenever the condition will be false in terms of if condition or in terms of if statement, whenever a condition is false, that block of code will not be executed. Only if the condition is true, then that particular block of code will be executed. That means whatever we have written inside a curly braces will be executed in that case. If the condition is true, if the condition is false, then nothing will be executed over here. So in this case, if you see, we have lost track of this particular programming that we have written where we are trying to check if condition is true. If 5 is greater than 10, that means 5 is greater than 10. If it is not greater than 10, then also it basically should have to return us some values, right? So that's where like only the combination of if statement will not be using mostly. Only if you know that sometimes if you have to skip the else part, then we'll be going for only writing this condition. Example, let's say we have a situation in terms of our test automation where based on the number of elements that it is displaying on the page, based on the number of elements that it is displaying on the page, we are trying to click on a number. We are trying to click on a different elements. Let's say we have 5 different elements available on a page. Sometimes what happens is it takes a couple of seconds to load the application, right? And if you again try to write some kind of automation as it loads in terms of like loading the element on the web page, it takes a couple of seconds. And then probably we might get like either one element or two element have been displayed and it will keep on going for the automation. So what we can check is if the count of the element is, let's say, greater than 2 or greater than 3, at that point of time, you click on some other element or whatever you have to do the validation. So, and if you do not want to print or execute like else part of the code, then we can write it direct if statement. As I was talking about this example, like whenever you want to validate that the count of the element is greater than 0 and then only click on element or then only perform some kind of operation, which is like either getting text or clicking on element or doing whatever the operation that we have to do. If the count of element is greater than 0, then only we have to perform. At that point of time, we can say it as if count is greater than 0, then only do this kind of action. And else part we do not require in that condition. We know that if it is not greater than 0, then it will automatically skip the execution and then it will go for the new things. As in case of this, we see over here, we know that the condition is false, which is 5 is greater than 10, not true. So it has skipped executing the previous part and then it went to the next execution of the code, whatever it has to do, and it returns us 15 is greater than 10 when the condition becomes true over here. If the condition is false, then the block of code will not be executed. If the condition is true, then only the block of code will be executed. Okay. So this is about the if statement. Any question over here?
Hi Praveen. What if I
Yes.
put 10 equal to 10 here? If
Even in that case, like 10 equals to your sign.
oh,
Like this, right?
uh-huh.
Right. So we know that the condition is true because 10 is always greater than 10. Sorry, 10 is always equals to 10. So in that case, it will return us both of the value, which is whatever the value that we provided over here.
Okay,
Example,
okay.
we have written like console log 5 is greater than 10 so that it has displayed over here. And for the second, it was anyways already displayed. So if the condition becomes true, we know that 10 is greater than 10, so it will return us a true value. So if the condition is true, at that point of time, the code will be executed. Whatever the code that we write inside a curly braces will be executed. If it is not true, then that will be skipped. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's move to the next part, which we have if else. So first was if statement, second is if else statement. what happened in this if else statement is this will also fulfill the condition for this one, where we have seen that whenever the condition becomes false, at that point of time, it is not returning us some kind of value or not printing us any kind of value. That we can get, or if you want to print that as well, in terms of like if it is false, then what should have to happen? That we can take the help of if else statement to check with. Okay. So what is if else statement? So if else statement is used to execute a block of code if the specified condition is true, and another block of code if the specified condition is false. That means if statement is used to execute a block of code, whatever we write inside this block of code, and there will be again inside a else block of code. So this is the complete syntax, which is if, and then some condition will be performed over here for if statement, and then for else statement, it will have a some block of code. So it is saying that if the condition that we try to write over here, that is syntax. If the condition that we will be writing inside the if statement, if that is true, then if block of code will be executed as we have seen over here. If that is not true, as in this case, then else block of code will be executed. Condition is true, and another block of code will if the specified condition is false. Let's see the syntax and then you'll understand in an easier manner. The syntax is very simple, which is if it will take again a condition inside this, the code that we have to write inside a curly braces. This curly braces will get end, and then another block of code will be started for else block of code. So this is the complete syntax for if else condition, where we'll be writing a if, will have a condition. This condition will either return as a true or false. If the condition is true, then the if block of statement will be executed. If the condition is false, then else block of code will be executed. Here, in case of if statement, we have seen if the condition is false, nothing have been printed on the console. That means nothing have been executed. Whereas in terms of if else condition, if the condition is true, then if block of statement will be executed. If this condition is false, then else block of code will be executed. What is meant by that? Let's try to see it over here. So example, as we have seen earlier, which is if 5 is greater than 10, right? If 5 is greater than 10, that means we'll just say it as 5 is greater than 10. And if it is not greater than 10, that means uh, if the condition is false, then we'll be writing another block of code inside the else block, which will just say it as if the condition is true, then else block of code. If the condition is false, then else block of code will be executed. Okay. So if you see here also it will try to check the condition. This is the condition that we have inside syntax. So syntax is if keyword, and then we have to write a condition inside the parenthesis or a small bracket. If the condition is true, then this if block of statement will be executed. If the condition is false, then at that point of time, else block of statement will be executed. So here in this case, if we see, we try to execute the code, we'll see that here the condition is false. In this case, the condition is false. So what it will do is it will skip the execution of this if condition, and it will directly jump to the else part. If the condition is true, at that point of time, this will be displayed. If the condition is false, at that point of time, else block of statement will be executed in terms of if else condition. So if you see over here, it is saying 5 is not greater than 10. Okay. But in case if we have written, let's say 15, which is 15 is greater than 10 and 15 is something, which is like, let's say 15 is not greater than 10 example. So if you see over here, we have written a condition which is true, which we know that it is true. So if it is true, then at that point of time, if block of statement will be executed, which it is saying that, let's say 16 here. Okay, so in this case, you'll see like it is saying 16 is greater than 10 because the condition is true. And if the condition is true, then that particular block of code will be executed, which is if block of code will be executed. If the condition is false, then else block of code will be executed, as we have seen earlier, which is 6 is greater than 10 and 6 is not greater than 10. If you try to print it over here, we'll see that it is saying 6 is not greater than 10, which is else block of code. Okay, this is again so simple. Any confusion or any question over here? Okay. Now we'll see the another type, which says that if else. That means it will have a multiple condition to validate. So the definition for this is in if else, multiple condition will be validated. Validated one inside if block of if one inside if and other. Okay. So first condition will be validated inside if block of code. If this if block of code is if condition, whatever the condition that will be validating for if that is false, then second condition will be validated and so on. So there will be a multiple condition in terms of this will be validated in if else if. So this will check, this will take a condition over here in terms of if, and wherever if appears, that will try to check another condition. So in terms of if else, wherever you see if keyword is appearing, there it will try to check another condition. So in terms of this, it says that um, first it will try to validate if block of code, which is if condition over here. If it is false, then it will go inside else if, and then again it will try to check the condition over here. If it is again false, then it will directly jump to the case where whenever it is not matching with any of the condition at that point of time, it will go and execute the code, whatever we have inside the else block of code. If any of the condition is matching at that point of time, whatever we have written inside that particular block will be executed. Okay. So there can be a multiple things like if, else, if, else, if. Let's see syntax for this. How do we write the syntax? Syntax means how do we in general write the code for that? So first thing will be if it will take a condition, we'll be writing a block of code for if. If the condition is not true at that point of time, it will go inside a else if. So as I said, wherever if keywords appear, it will check a condition. So even in case of this, if you see over here, in terms of else if, it is trying to check a condition. Again, we'll be writing some kind of block of code. Again, there will be another yes, else if you want to write, like we can write n number of else if. Wherever you write else if, there it will try to check another condition. And after that, if nothing is matching, then it will directly jump to the else block of code. What is similar this is? So this will look like in this way. First, if it will take a condition, if the condition is true, then it will directly execute this line of code, and after that everything will be skipped over here. From here, everything will be skipped. If the first condition is still if the first condition is true, at that point of time, it will directly execute this line of code, and other values will not be executed from here on. If this condition is false, then it will go inside else if block. And here also it will take a condition which will try to validate whether this condition 2 is true or false. If the condition true is true, if the condition is 2 is true, at that point of time, this block of code will be executed. If it is again false, then it will go to the next else if we have in our programming or test automation, and then it will try to validate another condition 3. If the condition is condition 3 is true, then this block of code will be executed. Else, again, this will directly jump to the else block, or if we have another if else condition to check it out. Okay, let's try to see an example and then you'll see how it is working in terms of in general and where can we use this situation in terms of our test automation. So sometimes we have to do a cross-browser testing in terms of automation. So what is cross-browser testing is the same code we have to run on multiple browsers, right? So that is what known as cross-browser. Same code we have to run on Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and whatever the browser that it supports. So let's say we are declaring a variable. We are declaring a variable which is known as a browser, and then we'll say the browser as browser equals to Chrome. We have just declared a browser which is Chrome. And now we'll try to check if our browser triple equals to Chrome. You see over here, we are trying to use a triple equals to. In these conditions, we'll try to use triple equals to itself. Why? Because this will also validate whether the data type of the variable are same or not. That is what we have discussed sometimes ago, that what is the difference between double equal to and triple equal to. So here we'll try to check if the browser is equals to Chrome. If the browser is equals to Chrome, then whatever the settings that we have to do for the Chrome, we can do that. For now, I'll just write it as you are using Chrome browser inside this. So whatever the setup that we have to use, we can use it over here for Chrome. So if our browser is matching with Chrome, whatever we have hard coded over here, but this value probably comes from some other file or some other data wherever we store the data. Currently, we are trying to directly hard code that browser equals to Chrome that we have declared over here. Now we are trying to check if the browser is equals to Chrome. If the browser is equals to Chrome, then print some kind of value. Else, if we are trying to check another condition where we are saying browser equals to like triple equals to Firefox. If the browser is Firefox, then we'll just say it as that you're using Firefox browser. If our condition is matching over here, then this block of statement will be executed. If it is still not matching here, then again we'll be writing another else if condition for, let's say, Safari. The major browser are like Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, and so on. And in that case, we'll be saying like, let's say you are using Safari browser over here. And if nothing is matching at that point of time, we can directly say as let's say you are using another browser or other browser. So what we have done over here is we have written a multiple conditions to check if the browser requirement, whatever the browser that we are trying to use, is matching anywhere or not. If it is matching at any conditions, any point of time inside our code, then that block of statement will be executed. That means we are saying that we have declared a browser which is equals to Chrome over here. And now we are trying to check if this browser that we have declared is equals to Chrome. If it is equals to Chrome, then it will print us you are using Chrome browser. That means if both of them are equal, then it will return us a true value. If the condition that we are trying to check over here is true, then this block of code will be executed. If the condition becomes false over here, at that point of time, it will move to the another else if block where it will try to validate another condition, which is browser equals to Firefox. If this again becomes a true, if this is true, then this block of statement will be executed. If this is false, then again it will go and check for the another condition that we have in terms of test automation or whatever the programming that we have written. So it will keep on validating each and every statements in each and every condition as far as we have written the condition. Okay. And then if none of the condition is matching, at that point of time, it will consider all the statements, all the condition are false, and it will directly jump to the else block of code. That means if all the previous conditions are false, then it will directly jump to the else block of code. But it still validate all the condition first, which is if statement, which is browser equals to Chrome, browser equals to Firefox, browser equals to Safari. If nothing is matching, at that point of time, it will print us the value which is available inside else block of code. Okay, so else block of code will only be executed if all the previous conditions are false. Otherwise, wherever it matches the condition, that block of code will be executed. Okay, so let's try to print it over here, which is like if and in terms of if else if, and let's see what is happening over here. So if you see uh, by printing, we can see over here that it is saying you are using Chrome browser. Let me also say it as console log, and then if else if it's so now if you try to see over here, it is saying you are using Chrome browser because the condition that we have given is matching at the first step itself. And after that, if it is matching, then all the other values, all the other condition will not be executed. Okay. Now let's try to make it as Firefox over here. So what happened in general is it will still come and check for the first condition. If it is not matching, then it will move to the another condition. That means if it is throwing false value, then it will go to the next condition to validate. If again, if in this situation, as we have declared a Firefox, so this will come over here and validate again browser equals to Firefox or not. This will match the condition over here, and then it will be executed this line of code, and after that nothing will be printed from the if else if part. So if you see over here as well, it is saying you are using Firefox browser. Let's make it to Safari. And now if you try to execute the code, you'll see that wherever it is matching the condition with Safari, that block of code will be executed where it is saying you are using Safari browser. And now let's say it has Edge browser over here. Now we know that there is no condition for Edge browser. So we can see that it is directly like after validation of all the condition that we have inside if else if block, it will jump to the else block of code where it will say like you are using other browser, because it generally compares all the conditions over here, and based on the condition, whenever it false the values, it keep on moving to validate other condition. When none of the condition matches at that point of time, it went to the else part of the code. Okay, now there is a there is one there is one thing that we have to understand in terms of if else if condition is if else if else condition is that, let's say we have 100 conditions to validate. Okay, let's say we have 100 conditions to validate and none of the conditions are matching. Okay, let's say we have three conditions over here that we have checked. In this case, we have only three, but let's say if we have 100 conditions to validate, okay, in terms of if else if, and if none of the condition is matching, if we have 100 condition to validate and if none of the condition is matching, at that point of time, still it will go and check, go and keep checking for all the 100 conditions. Here we have a browser equals to Chrome, here we have browser equals to Firefox, here we have Safari, and let's say there are another similar kind of condition that we have another 97 more. So that becomes 100. And if none of the condition is matching, it will still validate all the 100 conditions. So it will go and keep on validating all the conditions that we have written inside if else if block. Okay. So in this situation, whenever we use if else if, all the 100 condition will be validated first. And if none of them is matching, then it will move to the, at the end, it will move to the else block of code. Okay. So here in terms of if else if, it first validate all the 100 conditions, whatever the previous conditions are there. If none of them is matching, then it will go to the else block of code. That means in terms of writing the code, it is not so efficient because we require if there are no condition matching, then it directly have to jump to the else block of code. Right. So in terms of execution, as well, though we'll not be able to observe, but it will be a less efficient because it will keep on checking all the conditions. It will validate all the 100 conditions. And if none of them is matching, then only it will go to the else block of code. There is a statement that we have in terms of TypeScript and in other programming language as well, known as a switch statement. The next part is switch statement, where in terms of switch statement, it will also check a number of conditions, which is exactly similar to if else if statement that we have gone through. So switch statement is exactly similar to whatever we write in terms of if else if condition. This value will be converted in terms of switch statement. That is only the differences. Okay. But in terms of switch statement, let's say we have 100 conditions to validate. And if none of the condition is matching, it will not check each and every conditions that we have to validate. If none of the condition are matching, none of the 100 condition are matching, it will directly jump to the default part inside switch statement. Okay, so let's see what is switch statement. Switch statement is another like it also executes different blocks of code based on the values of the variable. That means it will also try to validate that um, the conditions are matching or not. It is exactly similar to if else statement, but it is more efficient in terms of using in the programming. So here, if you see, it says that switch statement is used to execute different block of code based on the conditions or value that we perform. Okay, so let's try to see the same example that we have in terms of this one. Let's try to see the first syntax. How do we declare the switch statement? So switch statement will also take a expression. That means it will also try to check a condition. Okay, it will again try to check a condition that we have that we are also trying to check in terms of if statement. Okay, and then here the syntax is a bit different. It will have a case value. Whatever the case that you see, it just take first. It will take an expression, which is whatever we are trying to consider. So here we are trying to consider, how do we write here? Here we are writing browser equals to Chrome or not. That means browser triple equals to Chrome or not. Okay, so this browser, it will take as an expression. And then whatever the condition that we are trying to check, it will take as a case value. Okay, we'll show you in next 5 minutes. I'll take like another 10 minutes of time today, as we have like joined late. Uh, so I'll just take 10 minutes. I hope everyone might be having a holiday today. So if not 10 minutes, I'll just take 8 minutes of time and then we'll finish it off. 8 to 10 minutes of time and then we'll finish it off. So this, in terms of switch statement, will have some kind of values. And if the value is matching, then this block of code will be executed. And then there will be a break keyword over here. Again, there will be another condition, another case value, which will be case value 2. If the case value 2 is matching, then this block of code will be executed. After execution of this block of code, this will break the loop. This used to be similar to if else statement, where internally it breaks the conditions. So wherever it matches, it breaks from there, and none of the condition will be again evaluated after that. In the switch statement, we have to use a break to break the break the statement and then move to the other block of code, like other part of the execution. And if nothing is matching in terms of this, then there will be a default, which will which will be again. So if you see, this is the entire syntax that we have in terms of switch condition or switch statement. Okay. First, it takes expression. So what kind of expression? So whatever we declare in terms of browser, this will go inside expression. That means it is saying, I have a I have a situation, I have a condition to validate. Now, as we are trying to validate, we have declared a variable which is browser, and we can say it as what we are trying to check a condition is browser equals to Chrome, right? If it is true, then this block of code will be executed. In the same way, we are trying to say here as this expression will be a browser, and this case will have a value as Chrome, Firefox, Safari. That what it will do is internally it will try to check in this way, which is browser equals to Chrome, browser equals to Firefox, browser equals to Safari. Whereas in terms of switch, we'll be writing over here, which will be a browser. And then here case will be having a value, which is, let's say, Chrome. Second case will be having a value as Firefox. Third case will be having a value as Safari. So what it will say is, whatever the browser that we have declared over here, if it is matching with any case value, then that particular block will be executed and break keyword will be executed over there. Whenever we write a break, that means the execution will be terminated. All the code that we have written inside these curly braces or block of code will be terminated, and it will move to the next line of code to execute. Okay, let's try to see an example in terms of switch case as well. So stop me anywhere, wherever you feel like you are unable to understand or you require some kind of explanation. I'll again repeat it. Repeat it as many as times it requires. Okay. So I'll just write a switch condition and we'll say it as, let's say, let browser name equals to, I'm just declaring, let's say, a Chrome value over here as well. Okay. I've again declared a variable which is browser name equals to Chrome. Now we have to write a switch condition. So what is the syntax for switch is, it will start with switch keyword. We'll simply start with switch keyword. And then you see it is taking a key, which is expression. That means this key will be replaced with the expression that we are trying to validate. In this case, we are trying to check if our browser name is equals to Chrome, Firefox, and Safari, as we have done over here. So let me also copy. So if you see over here, what did we do is we have declared a variable which is browser equals to edge. And then we are trying to check if browser equals to Chrome, browser equals to Firefox, browser equals to Safari. If nothing is matching, then else block of code will be executed. In the same way, we have something over here, which is browser name. Here in this switch statement, it will not directly check a condition which is browser equals to Chrome or not. It will not check the expression in this way, which is browser equals to Chrome or not. It will just take an expression which is a key, and then based on the value that we have declared over here, there will be a different values over here. Example, first value that we can write is Chrome, and then inside this we can write that you are using Chrome browser. And if it is matching, then break the loop over here. That means break the statement over here. As soon as it executes the break keyword, it will automatically come out of the switch block. And after that, if you have any lines of code, let's say if you have written console log, whatever the condition that we have written, this block of code will be executed after terminating whenever it encounters block, which is whenever it encounters a keyword, which is break. Now again, we can write another condition, which is case, as we have written in terms of if else if statement. So we can repeat again. similar things over here so that you'll understand how in general the switch statement works. Again, we have another condition which is Safari. And whenever we use Safari, we can directly say it as we are using this and then make a break condition. And if nothing is none of the condition is satisfying, then at that point of time, we can say it as you are using an other browser. And everything will be as wherever it encounters a break, the complete statement will be terminated from here. Okay, now let's try to see what happened over here. So we have declared a browser name as it is similar to this one in terms of if else if statement. Here we have declared a browser and then we are trying to check this browser that we have declared is equals to Chrome or not. In the if else if statement, we'll be writing the condition inside the parenthesis of if itself. Whereas in terms of switch condition, we'll be taking an expression. That means this browser, this will become similar to switch and then the browser that we have over here, which is Chrome. Okay. And now all this condition will become. So whatever the browser name that we have declared over here, that will come and sit it inside the browser name over here. So this will become a Chrome that we have declared. And this statement will become similar to this one, which is switch, and then browser name will come and sit over here. Now it will have a case value. So whatever the browser that you declared, it will just check whether there are any case having the browser name equals to Chrome in current condition. So it will check whether there are any case having a name as Chrome or not. If it is having a name as Chrome, then it will go and execute that line of code. If it is not matching with any of the condition, let's say we have 100 types of condition. So for all the 100 condition, in terms of if else if, it will try to check each and every condition whether that is matching or not. In terms of switch, it will just check whether there are any case matching with the condition or not. Okay, if there are any case, then that block of statement will be executed. If there are no case, then it will directly jump to the default statement without validating the condition. It will not validate each and every condition that whether matching or not. As in terms of if else statement, which is browser equals to Firefox, browser equals to Safari, browser equals to Chrome. It will directly jump to the case wherever it is matching. If it is not matching, then in that case, it will directly jump to the default statement. So if you see in current situation, it will jump to the case where we have Chrome browser. So if you see the execution over here, it is saying you are using Chrome browser as it is matching with the first case itself. If you make a change over here, which is Firefox, at that point of time, you will see that it is matching with the next case, which is Firefox, and it will directly jump to that particular case wherever the condition is matching, wherever the browser name in our program is matching. Okay, so it is moving to the Firefox. Now, if you again change it to Safari, it will again move to the next block of code, which is you are using Safari browser. And if you declare some value which is not matching any of the condition, then it will not even validate all the condition. It will directly jump to the default block of code where it is saying you are using other browser. Now, there is one thing that we have to make sure that for every case, we have to write a break keyword as well. If you do not write a break keyword, let's see what happened in that case. So if you do not write a break over here, at that point of time, let's say we have just declared a Chrome. Okay, let's say we have just declared a Chrome. So in this case, what will happen is it will go and check the case value. If it is having Chrome, then that block of statement will be executed. If we have missed writing the break condition at that point of time, it will keep on executing all the other values that it is having. Example, You can see here, you are using Chrome browser, you are using Firefox browser, you are using Safari browser, and you are using other browser. So if you miss writing the break, then it will execute all the statements that you see over here in terms of switch. So break is mandatory over here that we have to take care of. We have to write a break on each and every lines of case value that we write for switch. Okay. Any confusion over here in terms of switch or any question?
No.
Okay. Okay. So that is about the statement that we have in terms of TypeScript, which is if statement, if else statement, if else if, and switch statement. Okay. So as per our syllabus, we were having like loops as well, which I wanted to discuss, but that I'll discuss in our next day 5, uh, where we again have the loop continuation. So we'll try to go with the different types of loop that we have, like for, while, for, do, do while, like for, while, do while, for in, for of loop. For in and for of loop is new in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript, and that we'll also see in our next session. How do we use the loops and all? So we are still on the track of like all the condition, but I'll again suggest you, wherever you people are not able to understand, ask as many as questions you have. I'll try to explain like n number of times, whenever or wherever you people are getting stuck or you have any kind of questions, please try to ask so that I'll be able to explain it and more and more. Or you can also go through it a later part, and if you have any kind of questions, just note it down and then you can ask in our session as well. Okay, so with this, I'll stop it over here for today's session.